Hey there, everybody. We are back, and I know it's not hockey season; it's summer, and there's only two of us here, but doesn't stop us from switching gears and going from Leaf talk to Jays talk, MLB talk, and we got the man, the legend here, Bobby Bottles, gonna give us some of that expertise on the other end. And big day today, Bobby. We got the MLB Trade Deadline, and which I gotta be honest with you, listening to podcasts and radio and like all I guess all deadlines at NHL, MLB, NBA, whatever. You expect a lot of movement. Didn't really see that. Some of the big names we thought were gonna go didn't. A lot of teams who were expected to buy didn't. Some sellers maybe expected didn't really sell as much. So Bobby, I guess I'll leave it to you. Before we get to the Jays, what was your overall, I guess, opinion of the trade deadline, and how do we look at the Jays moving forward?
Yeah, like you said, not a lot of action. I think the one thing that really, well, a couple of things stood out to me. The pitcher from the Tigers, Rodriguez, not wanting to be moved, had a chance to go to the Dodgers. That was a real kind of head scratcher on that one. But I thought the biggest thing was Teoscar Hernandez not moving. I thought he was going to move, even if Seattle would have taken a low level kind of 24-year-old prospect that doesn't have much of a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like it'd be a better option than having a guy who's going to hit free agency and might not re-sign. So that was the one thing that really struck me. A lot of the teams that I thought would make moves, Houston obviously stepped up. Texas had a good pre-trade deadline stretch. The Dodgers amped up. I think people are looking around the league saying there's no real clear-cut favorite this year. So there was a lot of action, but no one was really just the one team that stepped up and just kind of gobbled everybody up. There was movement all over the place.
I have to say, nobody in the American League really scares me as like the team. Like you got to look out for insert team here. I really expected the Orioles to do a little more than they did today. They added Jack Flaherty, starting pitcher from the Cardinals. They are loaded with prospects. And, yeah, we can talk about, Verlander going from the Astros, going from the Mets to the Astros, kind of predictable, but a little, I don't know if people realize he's a Virginia native. So he was born in that area, grew up an Orioles fan. I thought it was a slam dunk, to be quite honest with you, especially with the prospect side. The the Nets were able to take the Astros number one draft prospect in that trade. So maybe Orioles didn't want to do that. But like, I really expected them to be like, hey, you know what? The AL East is open. The American League is open. Let's maybe not empty the clip, but really add some added help. So that was the one team that kind of surprised me.
I think they're in a little bit of an interesting situation. They have easily the best prospect pool. I heard a stat today. If they were to trade their second and third best prospects, which are very highly ranked prospects, they would still have the best prospect pool in baseball. So crazy. It was really odd. Now that being said, I thought Jack Flaherty was a really nice ad because he's got a pretty nice ceiling on him, and they kind of really only needed a starting pitcher. I don't know how much else they needed there. I don't think they wanted to mess with the chemistry, but I wonder if they're sitting there saying we have all these assets, but I'm a firm believer of it. If you can go for it, you don't know how many times you're going to get here, and especially in this division where we know the Yankees and we know the Red Sox are perennial teams that are going to be around. This is a year where they're both, I don't want to say on the down because they're all this whole division's above 500, but this is a year where you can kind of take a shot at it. So I agree it was a little bit of a shock, but they got Jack Flaherty, which was a nice move.
All right, so let's switch gears, Rob. Let's get into the Jays. I know, while we're recording this, the head's already shaking. We know where we're going. Really thought, at least they'd get a little bit of a jolt against the Orioles tonight, their second game of their 4-game set, but no bueno. Let's put it that way. Some costly errors in the field leading to another loss to the Orioles. As they sit right now, they're 2 games up on the third wild card spot. And that gap is closing. There are 4 teams, 3.5 back, which is kind of striking distance. The Yankees 3.5, which is and it's the Yankees. You never know what they can do, even though they're in shambles as well. But I got to ask you, Bobby, you like what they did? You didn't like what they did? Where do they go from here?
On a short-term trade deadline level, I thought it was a fine trade deadline. They improved the bullpen. They went out and got a middle infielder as backup for Bo and for second baseman. I thought it was fine, to be honest with you. It wasn't overwhelming. There wasn't a lot of overwhelming players out there. There were some starting pitchers, obviously, with Scherzer and basically all the ex-Mets pitchers that were going to be traded. That was really not a need for this team. They've got 6 starters now with Ryu coming back, so starting pitching wasn't really a thing. They're going to add Chad Green, which was basically going to be a free ad, and they obviously added Hyun-Jin Ryu, who's also another free ad. So from a pitching standpoint, I thought it was fine. From a hitting standpoint, they've talked about wanting that right-hand bat. I thought Teoscar made a lot of sense, even though I've been a bit of a Teoscar critic over the years. I thought he would have fit nicely. I thought they needed a 4th outfielder. That's the only place where I think they really could have added. Because if you're looking around right now, their infield's kind of set. They've got they've now added to the infield, into the middle infield. So I think it was just that outfield to kind of give Varsho and Kiermaier and Springer a little bit of help to give them an off night. What we're hearing from Ross Atkins is that they believe that they can fill that in-house. Now they've got a couple of interesting prospects that probably can play. I hope they give them a call up and give them a look, but for the most part, I mean,
who would those guys be, Robbie? Like, who's something like for people that really don't know the Jays prospect pool, which is not the best. Obviously, the last couple of years and making some of those deals and trading some of these guys away, but it doesn't really sit in the top half of the league. But who are a couple of those guys where they could potentially see a call up before the year's end, maybe September, or a guy that they could be like, wow, didn't really know about this guy, but he has potential to make an impact.
I think the one guy that stands out is David Schneider. He's having a really big year in AAA. I think he's like a top 10 hitter across across baseball. He's having a really nice year. I'd love to see them promote a guy like that. I know everybody's down on their prospect pool, but I mean they've got Addison Barger, who had a good year last year. They've got Alan Rendon. They've got some fine pieces that have a chance to come up. Maybe an Otto Lopez who can be a utility guy. I would love to see them promote from within. I don't know how much more they could have added from the pitching level. I think, and I don't know how far of a limb I'm going out on here, but I think if Ricky Tiedemann hadn't gotten injured this year, I think we would have seen him in September. I don't know if we're going to see him anymore because he's only got a month to ramp up, but I think we could have seen him in a 2008 David Price kind of role where when the Rays brought up David Price, people probably won't remember, but he was in the bullpen. He added a nice lefty. And I think that Ricky could have been that guy. Fortunately for them, their bullpen is, although being taxed every day, it's looking like a pretty strong bullpen at this point in the season, which they turned around because 2 years ago this bullpen was very light. And now it's looking like a pretty formidable group back there.
Well, especially if the projected 7, 8, 9 guys are going to be like Swanson, Hicks, Romano, or any combination of the 3 there, which is it's serviceable. That's it's pretty good. The problem is you got to score runs to get to 7, 8, 9, right? So, and I think listen, Robbie, you know baseball a lot better than I do, but it doesn't take a scientist or a rocket scientist to figure out they don't score runs as much as this offense was dependent on it. Apparently, they are 26th in the league with runners in scoring position, and they're playing the 3rd best team this evening, and that showed. And also they are in the back half of the league with home runs, with runners in scoring position, and playing the top team in that category. And you can see, the difference. I can't remember who said it, but just one thing the Jays are not is they're not tough outs. There's a lot of first strike or first ball swingers, not a lot of guys who really work the count, and they're just an easy lineup to play. Which if you're going to go up against some of these teams with some great arms, that doesn't bode well. So I think a lot of the pressure now for me goes on Guerrero. Like, this has got to be Guerrero's. He's not had a great year by his standards, but it's been okay. But just okay is not going to get these guys over the hump. So we don't know how long Bichette's going to be out. Let's just assume it's going to be, if he even takes a stint on the IL, it's going to be what, a couple weeks,
week to week. Yeah, he's week to week.
Springer's not the right time for Springer to have his biggest slump of his career. He's 0 for the century, or 0 for 33 right as it stands right now. The spotlight's on Guerrero. He has to put this team on his back and put up some runs, whether it's key hits, extra base hits, home runs. I know it's easy to say, but the finger's got to be pointed in his direction. Bichette's been doing it all year. It's Vladdy's time to step up.
It's funny. This team was known 2 years ago as an offensive team, and now they've completely transitioned to where I believe the four starters, the top four, Bassett, Kikuchi, Barrios, and who am I forgetting? Gosman. All have ERAs under, I think, 3.9, which is tremendous. I mean, that's phenomenal. And I think what people would have said was the worry was, hey, this starting rotation is the worry. And all of a sudden you're looking here going, they can't score runs. And like you said, they don't grind. They don't have a good approach. They've got guys that want to play hero ball. I hate to say this because I was a big Jays guy. Like, you guys know, I've been very high on their prospect pool. I don't think this is the group that's going to do it. I hate to do this comparison, but if you just look down Bremner Street, the reminiscent view of, what the Leafs and Jays are, it's like looking in a mirror where you're tied to this group, and I think it's the group. I don't think they know what to do. I don't think they know how to win. They can't come up in big scoring positions. Like, any big spot, this team folds. We saw it last year in the playoffs. I hate to say it, but that this trade deadline was not really that big to me because I don't know if this is the group that's going to get it done. Unfortunately, you've given them the keys of the franchise, and you hope, just get in and win 11 games. But they're looking awfully similar to that team down the road.
And not for anything too, like they've if we want to start looking into next year as well, they're going to take another hit. They're probably going to lose Chapman. He's probably dust. And you're going to hope that a guy like Orelvis Martinez takes his spot, or there's just not like a lot of high end upside because the prospect pool is not so great. Where you look at like Baltimore, like they're well, hell, you've been bad for that long. You'd hope you'd accumulate those prospects, so they're doing it the right way. But like, the East was you'd like to say that they've had their opportunity. The East looks like it's going to be run by the Rays and Orioles for the next considerable amount of time. I'm sure the Yankees will be back. The Red Sox will be back. It's not looking great, not just for this year, but moving forward. So I don't know, man. It's not a great outlook. I really thought they were gonna, at least add a power bat just to give the pitchers, like, if I'm looking at this from a psychological standpoint, the pitchers in the bullpen, the starting pitchers have been great, as you mentioned. Isn't that the boost you're looking for to give the team to be like, here's what we're lacking. Here you go. And you're right, Rob. There just doesn't seem that, I know it's going to sound stupid, but that camaraderie that you thought you saw last year. Remember the home run jacket, how, it brought the guys together, and they had, every team's got a thing now when they hit a home run, except the Jays. They took that stupid thing away, but it's almost looked like there's no camaraderie as much as we think that's there. And I think Teoscar was one of those guys they got rid of. Gurriel they got rid of. It just doesn't seem like yeah, you're right, Rob. This group doesn't just have that it factor that I don't know what it is, but it just seems like they're all on their own island. And I gotta be honest with you, Rob, I don't even feel confident in them making the playoffs, to be quite honest with you. That's just my gut feeling. I wouldn't be shocked.
I wouldn't. I think they'll fit into that third spot just because I don't know if I'm ready to trust the Yankees. They've got issues like crazy, and then the Red Sox are kind of one of the other teams chasing
That's the team that scares me. I gotta be honest with you. I think they can break through that team.
Yeah, I'll tell you now. If the Jays can't start winning games in division, that wild card is going to be up is going to be up for grabs. But I don't think it's an issue of making the playoffs with the expanded roster. They don't grind out at bats. They have terrible approaches. They can't move runners. They do everything completely opposite of what Baltimore's done to them in these last couple games, and that's why Baltimore's beat them. And this was a series they had to take 3 or 4, and they're going to lose 3 or 4, as I said before the series started, because that's what they do.
So, Rob, on a positive side, though, there has to be some. The Jays are still in the wild card spot, obviously. Your hope that they can at best scratch out a split with the Orioles. What positives do you see for the Jays to stay where they are or compete come playoff time? What's the one thing or the aspect where you can be like, you know what? If the Jays can do this or continue to do this, they'll be fine.
Their defense is still tremendous. This is still a top defensive team. We saw last year, the Phillies just sneak into the playoffs with 88 wins, and baseball's a funny game. You can struggle all year. You get some timely hits, and all of a sudden, you win some games. They've got the pitching to do it. Their starting rotation is pretty good. Again, now the back four of this pen, and we're going to leave out guys that are having nice years. Tim Mays is having a nice year, as much as he may not be loved in the city, and Trevor Richards also having a nice year. Hopefully, Adam Simber comes back and has a nice year. But you're looking at a bullpen that 6, 7, 8, 9 is looking like Swanson, Hicks, Green, and Romano. That's a really, really nice bullpen. Is it the best in the league? I don't know about that, but those are 4 quality arms. And if we think back to the Royals of a few years ago, they had some nice starting pitchers. They had really good bullpen, and they had some scrappy players. I think if they can start scrapping out some of these at bats, start raising these OBPs. These OBPs are really low for hitters of these qualities. This is still a really fine team. So it's the pitching is going to have to carry them this year, and they're just going to have to get some timely hits. Dalton Varshall's got to hit better than 210. Like you weren't expecting Barry Bonds, but you were hoping for like a 235, 240 kind of hitter. Springer, I mean, what's his? He's like 2 for 38 or something. So they've got to hit the ball better in key situations. Just change the approach.
So Rob, I'll leave you with this then. So now let's say everybody's healthy. Bichette comes back. You now have Paul DeJong. What's your ideal lineup for game 1, position wise, and how would you put them maybe in the batting order?
I think for me, Whit Merrifield leads off. I think he's been maybe the best J this season. Then I would go probably Bo, pretty good hitter. I think I would consider putting Belt in the 3 spot just to break up the righty lefty. And he's been really good, and a guy that was obviously, I think he's got 3 World Series or 2 World Series that's played in big games. I think he's in the 3 spot. I would probably put Vladdy in the 4 spot, and then you start kind of factoring in, Springer, Varsho. You'll have Chapman in there probably in and around the 5 spot. You might have Kirk, depending on who's catching. They've got some options. I don't think Edmonds going to play because he's just going to be kind of a utility backup. Hopefully, Kevin Biggio's not in the lineup. Hopefully he doesn't see very much more in the lineup. And I hope they give one of these kids a shot. Because the one thing we know about rookies is you don't know, how they are in big spots. The other team doesn't know what their strengths and weaknesses are. So who knows? Maybe you've got a gem down there that can play, and give a guy like Addison Barger, who's going to be the third baseman next year for this team when Chapman walks. Give him a shot. Let's see what it looks like. So when I'm intrigued to see when rosters expanding September, what they do. But that would kind of be my roster from the hitting side.
Yeah, I'm fully expect De Jong to move over to second base, allowing Merrifield to play him and kind of take the at bats away from Varsho. And then when Bichette comes back. So defensively, again, they get that much better. So they're used to playing in one-run games. So let's see. Maybe that's the winning recipe.
Maybe they can start winning some of these though. They play in a lot of one-run games. They just don't win them.
Any other thoughts, Robbie? Last thoughts or anything you want to mention?
Yeah, just looking at a stat right now: 7-22 in the AL East this year.
Fantastic, and they're still in a wild card spot.
52-27. I think they're the best team outside of the AL East in the league. It's comical.
Well, I will tell you, Rob, they lose every tiebreaker if they within the division if there's a tie. So not good. So, well, that's it in a nutshell. Hey, listen, like I said, it's nice to step out of our comfort zone. Bobby is our resident baseball expert, like call himself, but we didn't want to talk any hockey arbitration. So what do? We switch gears. We go back to our bread and butter. We get back to some baseball, football coming up too. Joe Chops is away as Palatial Estates, so I'm sure he'll be back as the summer comes along. And not too long, we got hockey starting up. So, folks, if you like the video, subscribe, hit all the good things on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and enjoy the summer. And I'm sure we'll be back talking some Blue Jays and Leafs and moving forward. So, till then, Bobby Bottles, Coach Frank, we out.